Okay, torej dobrodošli na 15. PHP Meetupu. Sem zelo vesela, da smo se zbrali v živo, da upoštevamo PCT pogoj. Tako da mogoče bi bilo fajn, če bi tudi dali kakšno masko gor, recimo po trenutnih priporočilih. Sicer pa ne bom dolga, no, dobrodošli tudi na Angel Dropu. Kot verjetno že veste, je to podjetje, ki se ukvarja primarno z razvojem v Drupalu, ampak delamo tudi z drugimi tehnologijami. Trenutno imamo že skoraj 70 zaposlenih, širimo ekipo, tako da so novi sodelavci vedno dobrodošli. Skratka, da pa ne bom jaz dolgo vezla, pa preden Janu predam besedo. Lepo se imejte, uživajte, pa ne pozabite, da po uradnem delu pride tudi pice. Tako da, evo, Jan bo pa več povedal o današnjem programu.
Živijo. Dobrodošli nazaj po enem letu pa pol, se mi zdi, da še več, ja. Zakaj nismo vmes organizirali dogodkov? Čisto enostavno zaradi tega, ker mislimo, da je del dogodka tudi druženje pred pa pol po dogodku. Tako da upamo, da bomo v nadaljevanju lahko imeli spet format na 3 mesece in da bomo lahko bolj pogosto izvajali. Danes bomo imeli 2 toka, kot ste že navajeni. Prvi bo od Petra, novosti v PHP 8.1, drugi bo pa v bistvu debugging v VS Codu, od kako ga nastaviti do tega, kaj vse omogoča. Spoznali boste tudi človeka, ki je za tem skrivnostnim pluginom. Tako da to današnji meetup bo v majčkeno drugačnem formatu. Na koncu bomo imeli tudi malo vprašanj z nekimi simboličnimi nagradami. Če pa ima kdo kakšno idejo za lightning talk, prosim, da se javi vmes, naj pride gor, dvigne roko, pa še kaj pove. Čisto na koncu bo tudi kakšen sponzor še kaj o sebi povedal in o tem, zakaj zaposluje, kot si ostali. Tako da jaz bi kar besedo predal Petru. Event se pa streama in bo tudi v bistvu videoposnetek dostopen potem na YouTubu. Peter, živijo.
Okay. Hvala, lep pozdrav še z moje strani. Jaz sem Peter, predstavil vam bom to novo verzijo PHP 8.1. Zdaj prvo vprašanje, tukaj kdo na Meetupu ne govori slovensko? Does anyone doesn't speak Slovenian here? Well, we will have English talk probably. It's the best for the stream and so on. All right, so today's agenda in this talk, let me just get used to this. Sorry, just to check where this should go. It's that. All right. Oh, thank you. Okay, so today's agenda, we'll check the usage stats of PHP. We'll check which versions are supported and what's the release schedule. We'll briefly check these all new features, and at the end we'll check 2 tools how to help you with this upgrade. So for example, if you're on some PHP 7.x version and how to move your project to this latest 8.0, 8.1. And also these little toys here, these are PHP mascots. So I'm not very familiar how these prizes will be available to you at the end, so this will be part of Christian and so on. So let's start with PHP usage stats and who am I actually. So basically I'm currently a little bit working on some freelance projects, some open source stuff. I'm a PHP.NET organization member. You can find me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, very friendly. I won't bite, so you can follow me and so on. And yeah, so first I would just like to promote one of my projects that I'm very proud of. This is php.earth, and we are working together with friends of mine on this project for quite a long. And if you want to get to know PHP more, you can join this project, completely open source. Lots of info is shared. So this is basically so far one Facebook group, a little bit on Twitter is shared there. So it's more like a completely virtual global user group, but on a very large scale. And we also invite you to join this project if you want. We currently have no Slovenians there, so very welcome there. And also, when this Corona stuff is over, we'll also do some, all right, symphony.c community. So this is also one of my projects, which is currently on a pause. So after all the restrictions are lifted, we'll also have meetups and so on. So also we'll probably join together with PHP meetups and so on. So more about that in probably 1 year or 2. And now let's check PHP version stats. Okay. Sorry, this remote control is a little bit tricky. Okay. All right. So PHP version support. How this works? Sorry. Let me just get used to this delay. Okay. So PHP is currently at on the server-side platforms. This is about 70 to 80% market share compared to, let's say, Ruby, ISP.NET. So this is ISP.NET. This is other platforms. So this is only server-side. And what we can actually measure, so that you can get some understanding on how far this PHP actually went. So it's very widely used, so don't leave PHP, right? So how is this PHP supported through versions? So each version, let's say 7.4, has so far at least 3 phases. At first phase, this is active bug support release. So in this is let's say 1 year, and in this year you will get bug fixes and all sorts of stuff from the core team. And this is the orange phase. This is the last phase. Sorry, these are 2 years, and 1 year is security support. So these are only security patches, but it's still available on many Linux packages a little bit longer. It depends on the company. Maybe Microsoft can support some versions even longer than that. Red Hat, I know, is also doing some stuff. And similar will be happening with PHP 8.1, which will be released in November, so somewhere at the end of this year, November 2021. Now let's check if this will go on. Ne. Mogoče bolj z miško. All right. So this is now the PHP 8.1 release schedule. So currently we are at the release candidate 2. This is on Thursday. It will be released, and we have 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4 more release candidates until the stable release is released on the November 25th. So nothing special is happening here. It's already feature free. All the features are merged in the branch, and so basically this is now the testing phase. All the, let's say, WordPress, Symfony, Laravel stuff are tested if everything will work correctly, and through each release candidate few bugs are fixed. So for example, in release candidate 1, 4 bugs were fixed and so on, and also some performance improvements and so on. So basically that's it as far as this 8.1 release is concerned. And now, why should we even bother, right, with this upgrade? Because I mean, nobody actually likes to sit behind the computer and upgrade this PHP all the time, especially each year from one version to the other. So why even bothering with this, right? Well, especially because of the new features that are actually quite very useful. So first reason is new features, and then the second reason is performance improvement. So the release managers, these are listed here. These are, so PHP decided that we'll have 3 release managers for 8.1. So their task is actually to make sure that the package is correctly packaged, uploaded to the correct location, the change log is updated and things like that. And then Linux package managers download this package and use it to build Linux repository packages. So for example, on Ubuntu, they download a little bit with the delay, but they download exactly these versions and patch it a little bit. And so when you write sudo apt install PHP, then you use Ubuntu packages, not this directly. So most people actually won't even work with these archive files, because it's very let's say it's very complex to build PHP from scratch, right? Now let's check what are these new features. So one of the very important new feature is this feature called fibers. So basically this is an introduction into asynchronous programming. So basically this is just one final class with several methods. This is very tricky because this actually will be used by frameworks. So it's very difficult for me to present some direct code that you can use and write code asynchronously without some wrappers and basically writing an entire framework for this stuff. So at this phase, I would personally recommend SWO. So this is a framework that is it's an extension and provides you to write, basically it's a Node.js for PHP. It's super fast, several times faster than the normal execution of PHP. It has its own quirks a little bit, but one of very popular stuff is this SWO. So even Laravel has used it in one of their packages. But this PHP asynchronous site is actually very complex. So there are many projects at the moment. So you will get probably very confused what to use, where to check, and so on. So basically, at the moment, it's something to discover a little bit, to check it out, to basically to investigate a little bit what you need and so on. So I would personally recommend SWO. It's a really awesome project. But this is my personal recommendation. Fibers will change a lot of stuff also, so stay tuned on this field also. And all right, so the read-only properties, this is another new feature that we'll check. Basically, PHP 7.4 introduced type properties, and now you can define either public or private property, but you also want to make sure that this property, if it's defined public, that it's read-only. So instead of those getters and setters, that you maybe just set it in the construct, in the class constructor, you set a value like this user, new user, and if you try to change it, then you will get an error. So this is one of the new features. Very simple one actually, but very useful. Okay, so one of the issues with these read-only properties is that all these keywords, for example, function, public, read-only, int, are actually reserved keywords, and all the frameworks and CMSs that are already using some of these words as a function. For example, WordPress is using this read-only function, and this is now in PHP 8.1. It is it's reserved keyword, so you will get an error if you will try to use WordPress. And we basically the PHP release managers just yesterday, they've discovered this issue, and they've already provided some very special patch for WordPress only. So you will be able to, at least for a year or two, and at least for until 8.2 maybe, you'll be able to use this read-only function. So basically PHP is very careful with these upgrades now, because we need to make sure that community can follow all these upgrades, because there are so many stuff happening in PHP that community simply can't follow this anymore. And so basically, yeah, a little bit of a trick that was done. So just fun info here. And let's move on, if we'll be able to. All right, so array unpacking with string keys. So what is all this about? So in previous versions, in PHP 7.4, there was a new operator introduced, those 3 dots. And basically what is happening here, just arrays merged together. But this only worked for numeric indexes. So for example, 0, 1, 2, and so on. And now in 8.1, all those little details are being fine-tuned. And now also string keys can be used. So for example, here, this is a bit of an edge case, but let's say A, and when you merge this array, you get a key A, which equals 2. So this is very similar to array merge, basically, but a little bit different. Okay, let's move on. So this is now another new feature is new in initializer. So basically you can define, you can directly create a new object directly and assign it directly in the construct. So maybe very useful for those dependency stuff, and so to make code even simpler and nicer. So everything is moving to this clean code from PHP point of view. So yeah, quite useful. Then we have a new never return type. So what does this mean? So in current versions, some functions, let's look at very simple functions here, just to get an image what's happening. So this redirection maybe, so you call the header, and then you exit the execution. The no return was actually happening in those in the back. So you could define this like this in the doc blocks, but now there is a special never return type, and for the static analyzers and similar tools, this is very useful. So yeah, this is one of the new features. And yeah, so support this never. So this is another, just an example. So if you're trying to return something, this is returning a void, then this won't work. So a never must not return. So something like that. So this is just an example of this never return type. First class callable syntax. So what is this? Yeah, I'm not sure how familiar you are, but basically this is a method from callable. You can define now this thing much simpler in PHP 8.1 by just calling the function and use a special new this operator, 3 dots, which expands to the arguments, and you don't need to define these arguments. Okay. Final class constant. So this is another new feature, very nice one. So in previous versions, you could define a class with a public const, and then you could extend this constant in another extendable class. And now using a final constant, you will get an error. So you cannot, so this means that this constant is finally defined, so it cannot be extended anymore. And now where to learn more about all this stuff. Here are some links, especially this documentation is still being written. It's not online yet. It will be on this URL, migration81.php. I would really recommend you maybe to start, if you're not familiar with this PHP 8 release at all, to start on this page, releases 8.1, and especially this stitcher.io. I hope I pronounced it correctly. So this is a blog, and there are very useful things. Even book is being written there. So and this first URL is actually a changelog of PHP 8.1. So yeah, that's it. And all this RFC, so I've skipped a lot of new features here because we'll be checking them and you will fall asleep. So you can all check, you can check all these features on this page on wiki.php.net. You are also very, very welcome to join this PHP project, maybe to contribute someone, if someone, some C or something. So, I mean, it's an open source project, very, very, very specially organized. There are no, basically no headmasters there and so on. So everyone can say something, what to change and what not to change, but you will have to provide a patch, open an RFC, pull request and so on. So it's a bit of a procedure, but everyone can actually do this. Now I would just like to point to a few tools to help you with these upgrades. So I will just point with 2 tools. First one is Exacut. So this is basically an entire dashboard. So this is an example of 7.4, but it will also soon work for 8.1. There is already a Docker image available. You can run it, run your application through it, and you will get an entire report what needs to be upgraded and so on. So this is an example from one very simple WordPress site, and all the issues are listed, and also all the compatibility issues are noted on the, oops, sorry. Okay, so this is also compatibility PHP 8.8 for 8.0 for WordPress. So something like this you will get. Okay. All right. Thank you, Bustan. And another tool very useful to check is PHP compatibility extension for PHP code sniffer. So this is a command line tool. You just point to a directory in a command line. You get all the issues that you need to upgrade. Very neat and very fast tool. So I really recommend you to check it out and to add composer require PHP compatibility to your project. And now for the and let's check this little toys. So elephant.com, phpend.com. So this is a PHP mascot right here. You can also buy this on this website. You really need to have this at your home or at your office. So I really would like you to invite you to go to this address and at least buy one or 5 or something. And of course there are multiple variations of this elephant. So this is the PHP 8 elephant. I'm currently don't have it with me, sorry, but it's resting somewhere. And in phpinityelephant.com you can also buy this. There are few more available, so this is a limited edition. You can buy this, so if you want. And basically that's it for this talk. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm passing the mic to the next colleague.
Thank you, Peter. Do you have any questions for Peter?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is from the PHP header. So sorry, from the HTML headers output, there are injected PHP version. At least in many servers return this info. So yeah, many servers won't return this due to security, but you can get a little bit of an image what is happening in reality. So this is an approximation, but so this is a w3text.com site, very that popular stat site. So it's a header info. Yeah, WordPress definitely. Then there is Shopify, I think. Yeah, WordPress is currently #1. Yeah, very widely used, very simple to install. So yeah.
Damian, you have some question?
Okay, the question is the read-only hack that they did for WordPress. Do you know, I mean, does it work as a keyboard and as a function at the same time, or is the keyboard gone for that?
Yeah, thanks for this question. No, this is just, so basically PHP has a list of all the reserved keywords, public, int, read-only, and then they've just made a special patch just for WordPress, and if this error happens, they just bypass it. So yeah, it's an ugly patch, but you need to understand that PHP is moving so fast that community cannot follow this. At least in reality, all the projects are still on some 7 point some version. So so that's why this delay, and well, they are still discussing what will happen, but yeah, probably will allow it. So something like that. Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Then I will ask Damian to join. Yeah, he will. Yeah, okay. So we will take 5 minutes because we have to reconnect the computers. And you can take beers or juice back there. Thank you.
So the talk is interactive debugging with PHP, with VS Code and Xdebug. So yes, okay. This is me, Damian. Here's my address for my brain dumps, my Twitter, and my code dumps, if you ever want to look at it. And no. Oh. Okay, so why even think and talk about interactive debugging in PHP? My background is I am in software development for 15, 20 years, and started out with C, Pascal, Delphi, stuff like that, where you always had this IDE with an interactive debugger. And when I switched to PHP many, many years ago, it was something that just wasn't there. Of course, the programs were different, the workflow was different in terms of PHP is request-based, and more stuff that I did back then was long-running programs. But there just wasn't anything to debug it like that. So how did we debug things back then and even today? And if the problem was really hard, we did this. No? I think we can identify with this about that. So I want to first, well, that's the place when I interact with the audience. Like, let's do this in reverse. Who has used a interactive debugger for PHP in VS Code? Right. Who has used any debugger for PHP? Perfect. And who knows what the debugger is? I love this. Everybody's included in the end. So, oh yeah, sorry. I stole the definition from Wikipedia. Oh, this doesn't work. Back. A debugger is a software tool that allows us to interact with a target process, stop it, inspect it, and everything. So when we talk about native debugging, like a C program, stuff like that, it's always the debugger tool interacts with the target program via the help of the operating system. So in a typical Linux environment, these are ptrace system calls that allows to establish a relationship within the two programs and then inspect memory, set breakpoints, hardware and software, and allows you to find the code that's being executed. But in languages that are VM-based, like that they don't run directly native on the system, like Java, Node, JS, and PHP, it wouldn't make much sense to use a native debugger for it, because you would be debugging the VM engine, and looking at that isn't really helpful for the stuff that we do. We do stuff up here. So the VMs usually expose a debugging interface that allows us to do this. With PHP, there's no such thing coupled with it. So so this was then later provided via extensions to it. The first well, there were more than one. There's more than one implementation of the debugger extensions. The first, I think, was the Noosphere PHP debugger and the Zen debugger, and later came Xdebug. These are extensions that hook into the VM engine, and that allows us then to interact with it. In the latest releases, I also found something called PHP Dbg. That's something similar like GDB or command line debugger, but I haven't discovered what it does yet. So Xdebug, it was created by Derek Redhans 15 years ago or more. The current version is number 3, and it's a Zend extension, a bit different than the other the normal extensions, and it provides the facilities to do interactive debugging with PHP. It doesn't have its own interface for it, but exposes these features via a Dbgt protocol. It also has other functionalities, and I hope everybody has this installed. If you don't, do it now. So I mentioned Dbgt protocol. This it's described, it's open, it was developed with the help of another company which makes an IDE, so many years ago. And the thing is that it's generic. So it's not bound to a specific language, and it's not bound to a specific IDE or even a debugger. So the initial implementation also from active state was for Perl, Python, DCL, and then later active hotkey also used it. Is completely out of this ecosystem. Oh wow, that's not normal. I wanted to just describe. This should be animating. The components in the DBGP connection orientation are, you have the PHP and the Xdebug extension, which connects back to the IDE. So in normal debuggers, like for Node.js or Java, it's usually that you start a VM with special parameters, and then the VM waits until the IDE connects to it, and only then starts to run the code. Here, the logic is reversed, and a lot of confusion comes from that. PHP starts, a request starts, and it tries to connect back the IDE, and then continues to run if it can't, or interaction with the IDE begins. So just to mention, this is all described in the protocol specifications, but the interesting part is that when the IDE talks to the engine, to Xdebug, it has a one-liner protocol, like a command minus option, la 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 la. And when the when the engine talks back, Xdebug talks back to the IDE, it has the packets and form of XML. I mentioned here it's a synchronous protocol, so when you send it a comment, you expect to get a response, and nothing more or less, nothing else in between. And it's single-threaded because PHP, it's like single-thread. The most, so it supports. So it supports most the commands that you expect most. The continuations, breakpoints, stack trace, variable in inspections, and a whole other generic language generic commands that you need in the process of debugging. So as I said, the Xdebug or the debugging engine doesn't provide a visual interface. You need an IDE. These are the most popular ones listed on the Xdebug site. Mentioning Komodo as it's from active state inputs, and they help develop the protocol. PHP Storm is currently very popular, and VS Code, which we're talking about right now, I think it's also gaining popularity. So I think everybody knows VS Code. Is anybody not using it? No, really? Okay. So it's a source code editor from Microsoft, and the point is it's very extensible. You can extend almost any part of its UI and function via extensions. So one could write an extension and implement a debugger for it with by extending each part of the interface that's needed, like a start button, a side panel for variables, stuff like that. But because debugging is so in some ways very generic between languages, VS Code provides a common how should I say, common interface for it for this firstly. So all of the languages, all of the implementations get the same look and feel. The button, the sidebars, the console, the mouse over things. And sorry, just a second. Okay, here. So the UI is generic, and the implementations for different languages are specific. And this is exposed via the debug adapter protocol. So what the debug adapter that we're talking about today is responsible for is communicating or translating messages between the UI and the specific debugger. This can be, as we'll see later, this debug adapter protocol is simply a wire protocol over a TCP connection or some other IPC. However, one can have what's called a pure debug adapter implementation where nothing else is shared with VS Code, but one can also write a more complete extension that hooks into VS Code and does other things. The extension that we're talking about today is actually a pure implementation of the debug adapter, meaning that it doesn't interact with VS Code. It just gets messages to it, translates them, and back. I'll show, but it already offers most of the features that are expected from a debugger. Okay. So in order to use this, first one needs PHP, right? And installing Xdebug. There's a helper on Xdebug.org where you can paste in your PHP info content, and it helps you decide which DLL to download or where to get the extension, and it helps you with some setting up. And then you need to set up the PHP INI that you at least load the debugger. And there are some other options that can also be set there. You set up VS Code by installing the extension via the extension menu. If you search for PHP, it's the first hit. And then comes the actual configuration of the actual debugger configuration. As I said, if it's a pure debug adapter implementation, it doesn't interact with VS Code in any way. So things that you usually configure with VS Code in the settings and stuff like that, this code doesn't have access to it. So all debug adapters are being configured via a special file called launch.json that you have in your project folder. In this file, you can combine many configurations for different debug adapters, so for different languages. You can have a project where you have some PHP code and run the PHP debugger, Node, you name it, everything that's supported. I'll show an example also of that. And within that launch configurations are different directives that can instruct the debugger how it works, the adapter what it does. For example, do you want logging, what port to listen on, and if in case you want to run debug you want to run the script that is open, also that. But because putting on a user that they would create such a configuration by themselves, it's just too much, it wouldn't make sense. The extension provides a default configuration for the user. So I want to switch and show this. Okay. No, it's okay. I have here a test project, and I already have the debugger installed. If I create a launch file, it will ask me which language I want to use, and it will already present or do the most typical configurations that are needed for this work. One is the first one is listen for Xdebug. It just listens if any process connects to it. The other two are specific for launching the currently open files and launching the current open file with built-in web server. The hardest part with Xdebug is getting it configured correctly, getting it that it starts debugging. And by providing those, I try to help the end user, so to do whatever was possible instead of them. I do this by passing specific runtime arguments and environments to instruct Xdebug to start debugging mode and to always connect to the IDE. There are, of course, so these are the default configuration snippets, and but the extension also provides additional ones. Let's just see if this works. is also listen for Xdebug 2 and launch currently open script with Xdebug 2, so legacy. Why? Because as I said earlier, current release of Xdebug is 3. Number 2 is version 2 is currently out of support and will be completely discontinued, I think, at the end of the year. But there was a major change between 2 and 3, whereas the default port changed and a lot of the settings changed, which caused a lot of confusion between the users. And most of the questions are like, it stopped working or it doesn't work anymore. And then you go figure out, okay, you have the old settings there. So, oh, well. Just by selecting okay, box is freezing. Oh, it still works. In my PHP INI, I don't have anything else set up, only the Zend extension path to Xdebug, and everything else the extension did for me in this case. So, okay, a lot. Okay, shortly describe how this actually works internally. When I said start debugging, the debug adapter has been started up and its launch configuration has been passed to it. The debug adapter opens a socket and starts to listen for incoming connections. When the script Xdebug connected to it, they do some sort of negotiation, like the init packet, which tells it what version it is, and depending on that, it does some feature negotiation, like some advanced breakpoint stuff, like late resolve breakpoints. And then when all of that is done, it continues the script. Or if the stop on entry is defined, it just enters the first file and then blocks. While the script is then running, events coming from Xdebug, like an exception, or even some output, is then passed back to VS Code. As I said, the TCP, the DA is listening on a TCP socket. That means that at that time anything can connect to it, or more PHP processes. This was one of the biggest issues with the code that I got it when I got it, is that it didn't handle parallel connections to it very good. One of the biggest problems is that how VS Code debugging is the debug adapter protocol is designed, that the process starts, you tell VS Code, hey, give me all the breakpoints. It gives you that, and then it tells you, okay, that's all. Continue now. If you have different PHP processes connecting while you do this, things get a bit messed up. So for solving this, I tried a few things, and one is when you run a script directly from VS Code, like start the script, I actually define a specific random port for each debugging session. So you have parallel debugging sessions, not one debugging sessions with multiple PHP connections to it. Another problem is when you just listen to it and you have a web server somewhere outside connecting to you, then things get a bit more tricky. I have an experiment running, but it would break other IDs. While I'm here, I would just want to mention is an interesting thing is that although this is a VS Code extension, other IDEs are actually using this code, like Vim, Codium, and a few more variants from Vim. They started via Node and then just talk to it via the debug adapter protocol, and getting issues from them is really interesting. Like, okay. Okay, does work. So typical setups where people, how I see people using this and where problems actually come from is that I showed a simple setup where VS Code, the debug adapter, and PHP are running on the same machine, and where things are, where you would expect them to be. But more typically, you would run a workstation and a remote server. You would configure which you would configure to connect back to your IDE, and then you have files running here, and the IDE here not seeing the files. Usually, people solve this with a Samba or SMB share to exit the remote file system. But then, if the IDE looks for those files, they're not on their local file system. You need to construct specific path mappings. If the server says, "Hey, my file is here, var vvv," you need to tell the debug adapter to actually translate this file. That's one big source of problems for users. The far better option that I use myself a lot is using VS Code Remote. I don't know, you've heard of VS Code Remote? Does anybody use it? Great. There you have there's no text. You have your front end and your back end of VS Code. So the front end runs on your PC and the back end runs on the server. And the debug adapter also runs on the server. That means that files are local to each other. There are, of course, issues that if you use a browser and on your machine connect to PHP, it will by default connect back to your PC, bypassing the debug adapter. Things won't work again. Oh, okay. And a lot of people use Docker, of course. Let's same combination. Okay, remote PC, server-side VS Code, and Docker and PHP. So imagine the path mapping mess in here. And also, yeah, I wrote this down. It's just not just paths, also networks. Like you don't connect to local host here. It's Docker. You need to connect outside. Probably, I'm not sure if anybody uses this, but I get regular requests for it, and I'm actually going to do it soon. The Dbgt proxy concept is where you have a multi-user system. So imagine that 5 people work on a server, the same server on the same files, and then connect to via their browsers to the web server, and it doesn't know where to connect back. And the DGP proxy is something in between where IDEs register themselves via the IDE key. And as I said, I'm not sure who would use it, but I'm going to implement it. The wanted to shortly talk about how this extension is actually being implemented and what the development environment is. So it is written in TypeScript, mostly because Microsoft provides all the base classes that help you with it. Although the debug adapter protocol is a network protocol, so you can use any language. Taking these helps a lot. There are other implementations we have seen from Microsoft also for .NET, I think, and for Java. Those are written in different languages. For Java is written, the Java debugger is written in Java, of course. All these are packaged into the extensions that are then sent to the marketplace, and they use the all familiar packages JSON to provide all sorts of metadata to it. One example that we've seen are these configuration contributions. All of that is defined in packages JSON. The other thing, the contributions, as I said, are also how the extensions tells VS Code what it can do for it. Like I'm extending QURI, or I'm providing a debugger for this and this language for you. And developing, you need to debug what you develop. You also develop in VS Code. The extension is being developed in VS Code. So here a a quick example. This is the actual source code here. Sorry. The launch JSON for the extension itself has a few different configurations. The debug adapter being run in a separate process, and the extension host. Extension host, if you, okay. It starts a different instance of VS Code specific for debugging extensions. Okay, I'm gonna run through this. All releases are done on GitHub with GitHub Actions. So we just merge pull requests, the tests are run, and then fly to the marketplace. I tried rolling up different pull requests into one, so to make a bigger release, but then GitHub just didn't close the issues, and I had to do a lot of housekeeping myself. Issues. I mostly interact with people via the GitHub issues, and the most, as I said, is configuration problems or not understanding how things connect with each other, and finding it hard to set up, and getting accurate bug reports from people is like, it stopped working. It worked yesterday, or I don't know. The breakpoints don't work, and when you ask them to send you the logs and everything, you figure out like bits and pieces of their system and kind of try to solve it for them. When I took over the project, the backlog of issues was huge getting there. Oh, whatever. Okay, I just wanted to tell a short history. Like this extension was developed by Felix Becker back in 2015, and a few years back he said, I can't do it anymore, and it was unmaintained for 2 years, something like that. And then at the end of 2020, beginning 21, it was transferred to Xdebug organization on GitHub. I noticed that, and because I know Derek, who's the author of Xdebug, I said, what do you want to do with that? I'm not sure. He said, okay, can I take over? Yeah, sure, here you go. And yeah, so it's open source. Why do it, right? It takes a lot of time. You can have good or bad experiences with the community, but having an extension with such a huge installation base, like it has 5 million installations, it's kind of rewarding and very interesting getting feedback from people. Oh, this helped me, or this works and it doesn't work. I get to talk to Derek about development of the protocol and Xdebug itself. And what happened recently is that I got contacted from Microsoft directly. Like, oh, we did a case study of people using VS Code, and we had one who wanted to use PHP, and the experience was really, oh, what can we do about it? Can you implement this? Can you implement that? We're so happy you took over it. Yeah, I said, like, there's a sponsor button. Well, just about done. To-dos or plans is supporting 8.1 with the new features like we heard before, read-only, and there's one more, I just can't think of it right now. Promised BGP proxy, and something that Microsoft actually wanted is the folderless debugging. I don't know if you seen VS Code has a blue mode and a purple mode. If you open a folder like a project, then it's in blue mode. But if you open directly a file, it's in purple mode. Because you don't have a folder, you can't have a launch JSON. The idea is that the extension kind of figures out on the fly how to start debugging. And this is one of the biggest things that they actually pointed out. Like, how can we make this more usable to the users? Like somebody who doesn't know anything. They mentioned that their Java debugger is actually the gold standard. If you open VS Code, you don't have Java installed, nothing. Pull in the extension, it kind of guides you through installation, configuration, everything like that. And that would be the ultimate goal here. Just because VS Code also, if you open a PHP file, it would offer you, hey, you want to debug this? Here's this extension, download it, this extension. And that the extension would guide you through downloading Xdebug, configuring it somehow, and you know, just hit F5 and you have something. Thank you. Okay. Ask me anything. Oh, let me ask you, if you haven't tried it yet, would you want to try it? Why wouldn't you want to try it? Why would you not want to have interactive debugging for PHP? Come find me later if there's no more time. Okay, thank you, Damian. So, any open questions for Damian? Okay, Amadei. How to debug a debugger? How to debug a, okay, you in this specific situation or a general question? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, that's the it's two sides of a question, right? One thing is also I was talking about at the end is that, so the question for the camera, the question was, what do you do when it doesn't work? How do you debug that? That is what I intend to implement, that it does the diagnostics, so somehow interacts with PHP, and it can tell you, hey, you're missing Xdebug, or your Xdebug is wrongfully configured. The other side is like when it kind of works, but there's problems, and that is when you go to your launch JSON and set log true, and then it's gonna dump a whole lot of protocol level messages, like Asadato Preklopet. Very, that's the interesting part, you know. I like this. Oh, you strange person. I hope this is log. No, log. Come on. Ah, too big screen. Okay, here. Log true. Oh, come on. Should be. Let's try this. Yes. So you can, if you set the log, it's gonna spit out all of the messages exchanged between VS Code and the debug adapter, and also all of the messages exchanged between the debug adapter and Xdebug. So initially, when I got the extension, it was these two things were separated. Like you had the log of the debug adapter, but the issue instructed you to get the different log from the server for Xdebug, and putting those together without timestamps or any correlation, it was just guesswork. And especially when I was debugging the parallel connection problem, where things were just blocking and you couldn't see what was happening. It was just madness. But you can also, download the extension, run Node, and debug the debugger if you want. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, today I would say you're completely right. Everybody should have their Docker instances on their PC. All the projects that you're working on should be configured that you easily run them locally with all the databases, with all the other crap it needs. But especially 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. Like you had a server, you had the web server on there, and people installing, you know, LAMP on their Windows machine, they were like frowned upon. Oh, who uses that? But the only IDE front end that you could use was on Windows. So that was it. The other case would be if you have that complex setup that you need to run it on the server because of all of the other services. But normally, and I also advocate for do your own installation. I mean, do your own local environment for development. But even there, it can be that you're running it on that you're running some parts of the system in a virtual machine on your PC. Same thing applies. Since you mentioned remote server, there's also one use case that. Oh, should I go into this? There's also I mentioned all those path mapping problems. The Dbgt protocol from Xdebug also has commands to fetch source over that connection, and I actually, this isn't my first debugger. I did a few debuggers before that, and one was for PHP also, and the debugger can work, the front end of the debugger can work like that it gets all the source over the wire. It's read only, but you can debug anywhere things. And things that Derek is currently working on are also interesting. He's working on Xdebug player. It records all the execution steps of the code. It logs them in a file, and you take that file to your PC and later analyze it.
So like a profiler, or?
Yeah, but you can actually, it replays all the steps of the code, like next, back. And another thing is a cloud solution that's a proxy. That too much to go into right now. Yes. Oh. Well, of course, it's
But you can debug on production, right? What is the problem?
Okay. Ste me odrezali.
Yeah, speaker died.
Team. Okay.
Okay, so any other question?
Please ask. Okay. I mean, try it. If you want, ask anything, try it. I think it's a wonderful experience for the developer to know these tools, even if you don't use it day to day. Well, the only unifying factor here I see is Xdebug. But each IDE, especially commercial one, they're gonna do their own thing because they have their own user base and they want to stick to a certain way they do things. And their strive, I would say, is like, come to me. You know, I have a good Go IDE. I'm sure you like my PHP IDE. The one thing that I think is good, or it's that Xdebug is the most common debugging engine. Although there are the Xdebug, they had a big fight 10 years ago. I'm not sure if there's another active debugging engine for PHP right now. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
So, any other questions?
Yeah, beer.
Okay, then Damian, thank you
Hvala lepa.
for the talk.